Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most and do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right, no extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
Okay, welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Mark Willis. He is a CFP. He is a man on a mission to help you think differently about your money, your economy, and your future. Mark is a certified financial planner. He is also a 3-time #1 best-selling author, and he is the owner of Lake Growth Financial Services, a financial firm in Chicago, Illinois, as a co-host of Not Your Average Financial Planner podcast as well. And he shares some of his strategies for investing in real estate, paying for college without going broke, creating an income in retirement for you that you do not outlive. And then Mark also works with people who want to grow their wealth in ways that are safe and predictable to become their own source of financing and creating tax-free income in retirement. And today we're also going to talk about maximizing your income in retirement. So Mark, I am looking forward to today's show.
Thanks, Keith, for having me on. I'm getting goosebumps already.
All right, perfect. I typically like to start, Mark, with just your background, where you grew up and what eventually led you to this career of being a financial planner.
Yeah, I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my hand, that's for sure. In fact, it was more like a wet dry vac because as I graduated from my college degrees, I had that nice fancy master's degree. It happened to be 2008 when I graduated, so not a great year to be looking for work, if you know what I mean.
For sure.
And I happened to have walked away from college with a little over 6 figures of student loan debt, and that to me was a crushing mountain and a problem for my wife and I because we didn't care about it. Or at least I should say I didn't care. My wife, I think, did, but I had to get my head screwed on straight to figure out this money thing, which I really hadn't paid much attention to. And, right or wrong, I didn't get a lot of training in, but that's ultimately my responsibility, right? So I had to figure this thing out and fast because, Sally Mae was hungry and she wanted her piece. She wanted her piece of the income. So I was getting all these side jobs, including working for a property management company with that wet dry vac underneath broken down elevators, pulling out all sorts of nasty stuff. And it made me just humble like nothing else to realize that if you don't understand money, you become its slave. But if you do it right, it can become yours. And that's what I was desperate to find out myself. And worked for a CPA firm at the time to just help pay those bills, and overheard a lot of the conversations she was having. It really fascinated me. And again, this was around 2008 and 2009. So I was overhearing the conversations where she was calling her clients saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Client, you're 64 years old, but I just lost a third of your life savings or half of your life savings." And that to me just felt like a nightmare. I had no interest in doing that to people's livelihoods, for their financial future. I almost left the financial world, but thankfully stumbled across some strategies that was just so compelling I couldn't turn away, both for myself, but also for possible clients. So we ended up starting our financial firm, Lake Growth Financial Services, and I have the great privilege now of working with folks in all 50 states, and thousands of folks are under, certainly it's my honor and privilege to get to serve them, and it's my joy to get to see them transform their lives without taking a bunch of unnecessary risks.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And so I know we're going to cover a variety of different topics, but I would like to, what are some maybe low-hanging fruit things that people can do that, maybe not everybody is doing, right? To start to get their house in order financially.
It doesn't even take a single penny unless you don't have a legal pad. Then you might need to go buy one of those. But literally take a sheet of paper and a pen and sit down and think. And that is such a rare commodity today.
For sure.
Thinking, and we are outsourcing our critical thinking skills to AI. That's a scary thing. So regain your control over your thinking. That 4-pound knot of neurons in your head is the most complex and diverse constellation in the known universe. And it's right there inside your ears. So use it. That's a big first step. And what do we want to think about? Well, here's an idea. Write down a list of the categories or characteristics of what you want your money doing for you. Because plenty of other people, Keith, you know this, man, plenty of other people have a plan for your money.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
From Merrill Lynch to Gucci, right? They all have a plan for our money. And if we don't build a plan, then they will certainly make a plan for our money. So write that list of characteristics. I care less about the nouns and more about the verbs and adjectives. What do I mean? I don't care if you call it a 401k. I don't care if you call it a brokerage account or a peer-to-peer lending or gold or some sort of syndication deal. I don't care what you call the money. What I care about is it going to grow with a great rate of return? That's a characteristic. Is it going to be liquid and accessible? Is it going to be private or exposed to creditors and predators when I pass away? Is there a way I can leverage it? Can I get collateralization against my money? Can I get a guarantee? Please, let me just have some guarantees. How about tax-free? That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So just start making your wish list, and when you get to the point where you're like, man, is this even legal, what I'm doing right now? That's when you know you're doing it right, okay? Not because we're trying to do something illegal. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you should be building a blue ocean strategy for your money instead of somebody else telling you, yeah, you can do this, you can't do that, you can do this, you can't do that. First, figure out what you want, then go out and find it. So many people, they just are told, hey, it's time to get your 401k. Hey, it's time to get your credit cards. Hey, it's time to get your third mortgage and your HELOC and ... And before you know it, you're just weighed down by the shackles of those things that somebody else gave you. And I think it's time, more than time, for us to really sit down and say, what do we truly want? So that's a short answer to your very good, or long answer to your very short question, to get your house in order financially.
Yeah, for sure. No, it makes sense to sit down and really just think about what you want it to look like, and then you can strategize from there on vehicles that can make that happen. What are some of the more common ones that people do utilize to start to build their wealth?
When you're starting to build, I always say build from the foundation up, and do make sure that you're sitting down with a competent professional who can do this well with you. I'd be honored to be considered for that position in your money team. But the more common places would be your savings accounts, your money market accounts, your 401ks. I wouldn't necessarily say go common. I don't want to be average, right? Average is all my money's trapped in my house and my 401k, and I got $600 in an emergency fund. That's common. Yeah. That's common, but I want to be weird. Our show is called Not Your Average Financial Podcast for a reason. So what is the weird way to do it? Maybe a time-tested but weird today way to do it. Funny enough, of all things, if we do it right, a dividend-paying whole life insurance policy can be an incredible foundation to build your overall financial plan on. And folks look at you like, sort of funny when you say that, but if it's designed properly, we call it a bank on yourself designed policy. And what it does, Keith, is it does four things, and I'll keep it really short. TGIF. T stands for tax advantages. All right. Whole life insurance has like a dozen different tax advantages. And in fact, if we do it right, we can design it where the policy can be giving you cash, totally income tax free, both now and in retirement. It's like an unlimited Roth IRA in that regard. Number two,
Yeah.
G stands for guaranteed growth. So the cash value in your policy grows guaranteed. Cash value is the stuff you can grab while you're alive. Yes, it's insurance. That's actually I is insurance, but it's also a living benefit, not just a death benefit, but we can access the money while we're alive, and it's liquid and accessible, and the cash grows on a guaranteed basis. So that means no matter what's happening in the stock market, that money's growing predictably, with confidence, with guarantees built in. That's a very hard word for a financial planner to say, the word guarantee, but we can say it because it's an insurance company's contract. So that's a pretty cool deal. That's G for guaranteed growth. I is insurance, as I mentioned. So I'm automatically taking care of my family if I croak, if I graduate, if you know what I mean. And it's also income tax free to the family, which is incredible. And then finally, F stands for financing. What if you could become your own source of financing and use the cash like a line of credit to yourself, where you can borrow against your policy? And this is the key thing. Most insurance does not do this. Many people tell me, well, Mark, I got a whole life policy, or I've got a universal life policy. It doesn't work the way we think. And the way I'm about to describe it is very unique. If it's designed properly, the bank on yourself way, the policy will continue to grow and compound even on the capital you borrowed. So if you have $100,000 of cash value, let's say $100,000 of cash value, and let's say you borrowed out $80,000 to invest in a syndication, your policy is still growing, compounded on the entire $100,000, and also you have your syndication doing whatever it's doing, and you have a loan against your policy that you can repay on your own terms. You're in control. You're the banker. So that's TGIF. Any feedback or comments on that first kind of foundational level?
Yeah. When people think life insurance, as you mentioned, they don't typically think that this is something that you can actually use prior to, or your family, whoever your beneficiaries are, have access to some kind of cash within it. So can you maybe explain that a little bit to the audience? How is that made possible, and what's different about this policy that allows you to be able to do that?
You're right. This is a little odd. And for me, as a kind of a newbie 15 years ago in the financial world, it was not common to me either. I'd heard of term insurance, and I knew that was probably the responsible thing to do, is right after brushing my teeth and combing what little left of my hair I have. So I'd get the term insurance. Term insurance is like renting an apartment. That's the best thing I can say. You're renting that death benefit for a year or 10 or 30 or whatever. And at the end of the term, at the end of the lease, the landlord will raise the rent on you or kick you out. And that's how it works with term insurance. There's no equity buildup with term. There's no equity buildup with renting an apartment. And the landlord will eventually kick you out. In fact, 99% of term insurance never pays a death benefit.
Wow.
That's why it's so cheap. That's why they can offer it at such low rates, because they know you're going to quit before your premiums are going to quit before your heart does in these term insurance policies.
Yeah. I think that is something that a lot of people just don't realize. And I mean, you have to continue to pay that. And, some people, as they get older, they may, get to a spot where it's financially not easy to do. The rates may go up, whatever it may be. Yeah.
So whole life insurance and other cash value policies, it's more like owning a house. So you're building up, when you buy a house, you're building up equity in that house as you make payments into the mortgage, right? And similarly, there's a cash value. You can hear the word equity whenever I say cash value. So you build up a cash value in your policy that is liquid and accessible to you without having to sell the house, without having to croak, if you will. So you can borrow against, like a home equity line of credit, you can borrow against that cash value at any time, for any reason, no questions asked. Unlike a HELOC, there's no approval process. There's no minimum monthly loan repayment requirement. You're in control of the entire process. In fact, I could take a loan today from my policy, go the rest of my life and not pay the loan back, and then I could pass away and my family would get the total death benefit minus the loan balance. So the insurance company has no obligation, or they're not obliging me to repay that loan. To me, it makes it the best little known line of credit that nobody else knows about. But it's been around for hundreds of years. This is the weird thing about this, Keith. The more I dug into this, the more it was intriguing to me. I mean, folks like Walt Disney, he used a life insurance policy to construct Disneyland when no banks were lending.
Did he really? Okay.
James Penny, he founded J.C. Penney. He used his life insurance policy to fund all of his payroll during the Great Depression. And in fact, most recently, the incoming head of the SEC, forget the guy's name, we could look it up, but the incoming head of the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, he's like Mr. Wall Street. Right. He had to do public disclosures, and he has, I think it said 54, was it 84? No, I think it was 54 life insurance policies on his balance sheet that he owns.
Oh, wow.
Cash value life insurance. So why would people do this? I mean, banks are some of the biggest purchasers of these policies. Corporations, major hundreds of billions of dollars pour into these every year. And us mere mortals don't hear about it because we're just told to go risk it in the Wall Street casino, hope and pray strategies, right? So for many people, you asked a very good question. I'll keep the long story as short as possible. You can have a tool that is now yours, growing and guaranteed to grow for the rest of your life, and you have liquid access to it all along the way. What would that do to the average American's financial picture if they had that as their rock solid foundation?
Yeah, it'd make a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, what if just 10% of America had something like this? What would change about credit cards? Car loans, student loans, divorce rates, BMI, the list goes on and on. I feel like banks have had a grip around our country and around our world literally for thousands of years. There's a great book out there by David Graeber. I don't agree with everything in the book, but the title's great. It's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years. And that's a reminder that banks are in control if you let them. But if you sit on the right side of the banker's desk, everything gets better, like from a financial standpoint, but emotionally. I mean, imagine how it would feel next time we have a recession, everything's on sale, and you've got a big pile of liquid cash.
Yeah.
Somebody has to buy that stuff when the prices go down.
Yeah, exactly. And so how is it structured? So is this something that you can pay into over time? Is this something that you purchase, you sell a property, whatever it may be, put a large chunk down, and then how quickly do you have access to be able to pull some of that back out to borrow against it?
Yeah, great questions. So in many ways, it's custom tailored to each person. And we want to make sure it's the right fit for you first, too. So it's not a good fit for just every old person who hears about this. So we want to do our due diligence. And as financial planners, we make sure that it's the right fit for you before we go recommending or proposing anything. But to answer your question, Keith, every design you can imagine is possible from what you just described. I've had folks who sold a property and used that cash to dump into a policy as a single payment. A lot of folks think they're stuck with monthly payments for life. No, nothing could be further from the truth. You can do a single premium whole life policy. I had a guy, he put in $400,000. He's 65 years old. He's like, Mark, I'm too old for this. I said, no, you're halfway there, man. These policies will let you grow to 120. So he dropped in $400,000 into a single premium policy, and he had about $380,000 in the first year, about $415,000 by the third year, and his death benefit was almost $900,000 in the first year. That's as cheap as we could make it, and that gave him essentially 90+% of his cash liquid to then turn around and borrow and buy another property with. So for him, he's 65. He had a one lump sum like that. But then there's other people who structure where they drop money in every month or every year, or a blend of all those things. And you asked how quickly you can borrow. He was able to do that turnaround where he dropped the money into the policy, and then he was borrowing that money again within about 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow. Okay. And again, maybe for the audience, some of the reasons that this would make sense to do that versus just put the money into the next property is, number one, you're still growing with the policy itself. So whatever that lump sum initial amount was, you're getting. I know returns will vary, but in general, what is a what type of a return or a percentage or of growth can you expect from a policy?
Yeah, that's another thing I would say. If you're looking for triple-digit yields, you're going to be sorely disappointed with whole life insurance. It's not meant to be an investment or even to replace your investments. I don't put it there. I put it in the cash equivalent part of your portfolio, the guaranteed, predictable, liquid part. So it's a cash replacer, you might say. And so it's going to be in that middle single-digit range, Keith, somewhere between 4 and 6%. Now, I will mention that is a after-tax yield, meaning I should say tax-free yield. So if you have a 4% or a 5% money market, like somebody I was just talking to, he's a client of mine for several years. He's got 4.5% in a money market right now as we're recording this. That's the current rates. But he noted that those were taxable yields. So the money market account is going to tax you every year just for leaving your money in the money market. So after taxes, he's got more like a 3%, 3.5% yield versus a 5+% yield on his life insurance over time. That's what they'll probably do with no taxes due.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even with that return of 4 to 6%, tax free, call it the 4%. Even going with the lower one, if you're deploying that capital into some other investment, now you're making money on top of the money that you're earning. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. Yeah, so that's the key right there. If we're just letting it sit, soak, and sour inside a policy, I feel like I've not done my clients justice. We regularly have 6-month review meetings with folks, and I'm constantly saying, let's prioritize the cash value for emergencies, security blankets, college for the kids, but then let's take a chunk of that cash value and go find something to get some great double-digit, heck, triple-digit yields if we can find it out there in the wild universe. Whereas we've got a stop loss, don't we? So if the investment goes goose egg on us, and we've seen it all, right? The policy is still there to continuously grow for us, so we won't have a total loss. Yeah, we got a policy loan to pay off, but really we've got that continuous growth in our money, so we never broke compound growth. I'll take a 4.5%, 5% yield that never stops over a volatile 8% or 10% or 12% that has to start and stop over the years.
Yeah, it's a great strategy for sure. And you mentioned it, kind of banking on yourself, and you mentioned credit cards. You think of all these things that we do pull money out for, and the opposite things happening if it's a credit card, right? Especially if you don't pay off your balance, you're going the exact opposite way on the growth. What else is there's also some benefits because it's a life insurance policy. From a couple different things as well, right? There's some protection there as well versus it just sitting in the bank as cash?
Well, levels of protection. I mean, we've already mentioned it's market protected since it's not tied to stock market investments. It's also creditor and predator protected if you were to go through bankruptcy proceedings or got sued, God forbid. It's a matter of when, not if, for most business owners. So having some kind of protection against that kind of madness is a good idea. Look at your state's rules for your state-by-state protections, but life insurance is an exempt asset for most states for bankruptcy. And so there's several layers of protection. I could even add to that, like the nursing home would be another way to kind of protect it from them too. In the later years of your life, you can use your life insurance as a protector against the nursing home taking all your other assets, which will be a major expense for most families. The average American family will spend about $250,000, meaning a couple, so husband, wife, somebody in the household is going to need about $250,000 for long-term care and another $250,000 for unpaid medical expenses throughout their later retirement years. So that's $500,000. And also we're going to need our retirement for groceries and grandkids. Most people don't have $500,000 total saved. And so having the protection of using the death benefit for the ongoing chronic illnesses that we might have in our later years while we're still alive. I don't know if I'm making this totally clear, Keith, but if it's designed properly, you can access your death benefit while you're still alive for nursing homes, home health care. One guy used it to go on a cruise with his whole family. So when you've got that final terminal illness or ongoing critical chronic long-term care style illness, accessing that death benefit could be a real lifesaver to protect your rental properties that you don't want to sell or other things.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's definitely a great tool to have out there. What are some other tools as
Yeah.
well that maybe not everybody thinks about or utilizes?
Yeah, and absolutely, it's a blend. It's a tool that fits in with others. I kind of call it the Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knives are great, but they are really bad at doing certain things. Right? You can't like unscrew a lug nut with a Swiss Army knife. So you still need other tools in the toolbox, even though the Swiss Army knife is a pretty popular one and should be in everybody's pocket, is my opinion. So here's another one. We call this the income maximization strategy. And this one blows me away every time I look at it because, I was not kind of built around this. My financial planning strategy, my financial planning background was with the American College, getting my certified financial planner designation. You're not taught this stuff. You're certainly not taught about whole life insurance the way we've been describing. But there's another tool out there, and it's literally, Keith, I saw in a museum in downtown Chicago. I live in the suburbs. There's a museum there called the Ancient Oriental Institute. And I just happen to be a huge nerd for that sort of thing. So me and my buddy were walking down the halls of this old museum, and I looked around on the wall, and there it was, this long 20-foot long parchment paper, ink written on it, whatever. And it was in this weird old handwriting, looks like something out of Greek or something. And so I looked carefully at the placard underneath that long parchment, and it said annuity contract. And I looked closer, and it said 365 BC. And I said, this is nuts. What the heck is it doing there? So it felt like something out of I guess a nerd's history film, I guess. But I did some due diligence and reading on this, and yeah, annuities have been around for thousands of years. So what are they? They are a lifetime income payment, guaranteed. Now, many people listening to this are looking for passive income. Many people are using and choosing assets that are really good. I recommend real estate. I recommend alternative assets. We talk about strategies that can be used for whether it's peer-to-peer lending or ATM machines or car washes or whatever, right? The mobile home parks, the list goes on, oil and gas. But consider the humble annuity. In fact, I was just on, my friend sent me a Facebook the other day, and Shaquille O'Neal was talking about how annuities are what saved him from bankruptcy and it's what pays his bills every month. Shaquille O'Neal? Really? Well, funny enough, if you do them right, annuities can be the bedrock of your cash flow. So annuities are just a contract with an annuity company. And the old-fashioned ones I'm not a huge fan of because they would keep your money if you died. But the new annuities do a few things. And once again, I'll be brief here. First, they give you a guaranteed lifetime income. We could stop right there, right? What else does that? Not dividend-paying stocks, not municipal bonds, not even rental real estate. I mean, real estate's great, but it's got the 5 T's. You know the 5 T's of real estate? Trash, termites, tenants, toilets, and taxes, right? So annuities have none of those. So you can give a second glance at annuities and notice that the more modern ones also are liquid, meaning you can access the cash in there if you need it. It's not as liquid as a whole life policy, but if you need to grab the money out, they didn't remove that cash from you. And if you died too soon, the greedy annuity company doesn't keep your cash. It goes to your kids or your wife or spouse or whoever. And if you go into a nursing home, that income doubles in some cases. And if you are concerned about inflation, that lifetime income can grow over time as well, keeping up with inflation. So your income might start at, let's say, 30 grand a year, 50 grand a year, but then it grows to 60, 70, 90 as the years go on. So once again, it's something worth considering. I have found them to be the most efficient means at maximizing your income. And I'll maybe wrap with this and then get your feedback, Keith. There was a recent guy who said, Mark, I want to retire like a millionaire, but I only have about 600 grand. So what do I do now? I said, well, you got a couple options. You can go the 401k stocks IRA route. And, the best case scenario is take about 4% of your money out each year. So what's that? That's going to be about 24 grand a year, right? 24 grand a year. That's the 4% rule at work. That's pathetically small for having 600 grand. Or we can put that 600 grand that you have into an annuity, and the annuity starts out at 50 grand a year, basically double his income with no market risk. And that 50 becomes 55, 57, 62, 68, 72,000 bucks a year. Even if he ran out of money in the annuity, the income never stops. It just continues on for as long as he or his wife lives, which is really remarkable. So he was floored. I was happy, and he's in a much better place now.
So on something like that, I'm sure are there health questions and certain things that kind of dictate the whether or not it qualifies. I mean, I guess I'm sure there's a wide variety of different annuities, right? So this is just one flavor, one version.
Yeah, great question. No, there's no health questions on annuities. You'd think there should be. Like, hey, are you feeling okay over there? We only want to pay you for the next 22 days. Are you gonna? No, the annuity companies do not ask health questions for annuities. They will for life insurance, but they won't for annuities, which is interesting. In fact, Jane Austen has a quote. She says, "People live forever when they have an annuity being paid to them." And it's kind of true. You kind of live longer when you expect that paycheck coming at your inbox every month.
Yeah, for sure. So how does one fund an annuity? Is it similar to what we talked about with the life insurance, where you're going to take either you can do a build-up period where you're making monthly payments, or you can move over a certain amount of cash into that?
Lots of great questions. Any way you can design it. Most often I found it's people having old 401ks at their old job or IRAs. You can simply do a rollover to an IRA at an annuity company. Okay, so this is a truly tax-deferred move. It's just a simple 401k to IRA rollover. Or you could do an IRA to IRA transfer. Either way, it's a totally tax-deferred move, and there's no penalty or taxes to make the move. And it's going from a stock-based or market-based or target date funds, mutual funds-based 401k that you might have at your old job, over to an IRA holding an annuity. Many people forget this, but IRAs can hold all sorts of stuff. It can hold real estate, it can hold stocks, it can hold gold, it can hold crypto. Well, IRAs can hold annuities too. And so a lot of people just choose to roll over or transfer funds from other IRAs into their annuities, making their income much more efficient as a result. But you can also fund it with just cash savings.
Yeah.
And make that part of your overall financial plan.
Okay. Perfect. Great examples for sure. What are some other things that folks are doing? I've got, I'm fortunate enough to have maybe one more year left of college to pay for my my youngest daughter.
Right. The party's at your house.
That's right. But my brother and sister, they're right in the middle of it and have multiple kids at the same time going through college. So that's something that everybody has that with kids has to worry about that at some point in their life. So tell us a little bit about some things that maybe can be done from that standpoint as well.
You're right. That's a major wealth transfer, and I'd say many people go through their life spending on groceries and gas and all that stuff, trying to save what they can, but then they're hit up with these giant wealth transfers. Maybe it's the big tax bill on that capital gain asset, largely appreciated asset. Maybe it's the washing machine. Maybe it's the kids that go through college, right? So those costs are major, and it can have a devastating impact on your financial future, but also your family's wealth. I mean, imagine how many dollars are going from your financial wealth, your financial tree, your family's financial tree, over to, the Sally Mae and her cronies, like that's what happened to me, or the endowment funds of these major institutions and universities. Somebody's retiring off that cash, and it's not us.
Right.
So most people think, well, I'll just get a 529 plan. That's a college savings, typical common college savings plan, or a Coverdell account, or an ESA account, or some of these other college savings plans. Those are good. But I would say it's like buying your college at the mall. It can be overpriced and it underperforms. And here's what I mean. You get a nice little tax deduction when you put money into a 529 plan, and you can get the money out without taxes due if you spend it on college. That's good. Couple things that I don't like about that are, one, let's say the kid decides to be the next Bill Gates and doesn't really go to college all the way or something, or decides to be the next Elon Musk or something and is able to avoid college. Now we've got this 529 plan, and we can't really spend it. Also, every dollar that goes into the 529 plan shows up as a part of the kid's assets. And that's counted against him or her and the whole family when you go to apply for financial aid. So even if you make a lot of income, guys, there are ways we can reduce your shown income and also your net worth when you go to apply for financial aid. I've had people making $1 million a year who are still able to get need-based and merit-based financial aid on their kids' college formulas, right? The FAFSA form and that sort of thing. Now, back to life insurance for just a minute. Life insurance does not get reported on the financial aid formulas. When you apply for financial aid at the university, they ask you about your 529 plan. They ask you about your savings accounts and other things, but they will not ask you about your life insurance plan, your life insurance policies. Okay. So if you and I, let's say you and I were both sending our kid to college this year, and let's say that you had a ton of cash, millions packed into life insurance policies, and they couldn't see it. And my daughter had, applied there too at that college, but I had all my money in 529 college savings accounts. Which kid is going to get the need-based aid? Yours, right? Yeah. Because yours smartly hid the money, not in an illegal way, but in a perfectly legal and respectable way. And this is how most very wealthy families are moving monies out of qualified plans like 529s and into non-qualified camouflaged accounts that we refer to as bank on yourself type policies.
Okay. No, that's a great strategy. I never thought of using it for college, but it's just the same as using it for anything else.
And imagine you got hundreds of thousands of dollars now not breaking compound growth when you're sending that kid to college. You're still getting that growth for your own retirement at the same time.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. No, this has been good. We've hit several very good topics. How about some other things, Mark? What are some other things that people can do to really kind of position themselves in the right spot financially?
Sure. We just launched and published literally this week, our newest book, which is called The Business Fortress: How to Grow, Protect, and Exit Your Business with Confidence. And I say we because I was blessed to get to co-author this one with David C. Barnett. And David C. Barnett is a business consultant for businesses in that middle to upper middle market, net operating income somewhere in the 300,000 to 1.5 million range. And he and I wrote a book as to be a field guide for businesses that are at that precipice point when the banks really start to pay attention to you. And they really start to say, hey, let me lend you some money. What's the Mark Twain quote? He says, a banker is a fellow who will lend you his money when the sun is shining, but wants it back as soon as it starts to rain, right?
That's right.
That's what sucks the blood out of the entrepreneur and kills us. It's those banks that ultimately take our profits. And it's why banks have got the biggest building in town. So, to answer your question, owning a business is the number one core strategy, I would say. If I was just going to say something generic on a podcast like this, obviously each individual has their own financial strategy they have to work out with a CFP. But owning a business is another time-tested, just about as old as annuities, to help you become financially independent. And I mean, your show has got incredible content talking about stuff like this, and the book itself is meant to be a what to do now field guide strategy. Again, it's called The Business Fortress. How do you build something that's got resiliency and even an anti-fragility where you get stronger under pressure, and not just crumble under the pressure, but actually get stronger under pressure? That's what the book is all about. So I would say find a business that you can run, not just buying yourself an expensive job. That's how most businesses get started, but actually build a business where you can exit without exiting. As one of my colleagues and friends, Jason Duncan, says, where you can run the business without having to run the business, if you know what I mean, where it should run by itself at some point and help you have that kind of life that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, it makes, and right now is a perfect time to be able to do that as well. There's so many baby boomers that have these businesses that are,
right.
Maybe the kids don't want to take it over, whatever. And so great opportunity right now to find businesses.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, we have some software at our firm at Lake Growth Financial Services where it cost us about $20,000 and to help you get a license for this. But you can get a valuation of that business before you buy it, or if you're selling, you can know what your business is really worth. And we'll get it down to the zip code, down to the industry, and say, all right, you should ask for or offer $18 million for your business. And we've had folks clear that, negotiate that, and then walk away with an installment sale from that, just from that software's valuation. That's something we offer at no charge to our clients.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So we've covered life insurance. We've covered buying a business. Anything else on buying a business and setting up that fortress that you want to elaborate on?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many tax strategies and benefits there, but let me kind of keep it really tight around these kind of concepts that we're talking about today. What if your business owned one of these high cash value life insurance policies inside the business? A lot of business owners do this. Again, I mentioned a few, Walt Disney and JCPenney, and Ray Kroc from McDonald's. But what if you had one of these and everybody else was doing the normal borrow from their credit cards, borrow from payables, borrow from Amazon lending, borrow from the Cabbages of the world, good grief, some of these major loan sharks that are sucking our business owners dry. And once again, if everybody else in your industry is living the common financial life as a business owner, and you're sitting on a fortress with a moat around you and a business keep, you remember what the castle's keep is, right? Where the treasure is. If your treasure is just a big old pile of contingency capital and everything hits the fan, as you know, you'll be the one that'll pick up the pieces, buying the inventory at cost from your competitors and taking up market share. And you'll have a golden parachute when the time comes to leave the business, because that big pile of cash value is yours to take with you. I'll tell you a very quick story. There's a guy who sold his business recently. He's a client of mine, and his business had owned one of these policies insuring him, but they were using it to help run and operate their business. When he sold his equity in the business, the negotiation was that he was going to take his policy with him as a golden parachute, along with some other cash and some installment payments. But he took that cash value, Keith, and now it's his own, several $1 million in cash, plus his payments from the business. He was thrilled because now he's got a family gift. He's got a policy that he can access with so many tax advantages. And he used the policy to help him maneuver some tight spots when he was in trouble with his business to help get it to a point where he could sell it. So to me, it's like, all right, why wouldn't I do this if I was a business owner? Obviously, there's cost to everything. There's considerations. We don't want to just jump into this. It could be designed improperly. It's actually the biggest risk in this whole thing, Keith, is that the wrong guy or gal designs it for you or says he or she can do this, and it ends up being a tax nightmare or riddled with commissions. So whether you're doing a business strategy like I've talked about, a life insurance policy, an annuity, an IRA rollover, make sure you're working with a competent professional, and everything becomes easier as a result.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this might be a good spot for Mark for you to tell folks how they can find out more about you, how they could possibly work with you as their financial planner.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And thanks again, Keith. You've got a great show, and everyone should leave a 5-star review for his show as the good work he's been doing. I love that you hit episode 100 recently, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
You can go to newbankingsolution.com. That's newbankingsolution.com. Imagine if you want to incorporate something like this into your financial plan, having an advisor who knows what he or she is doing when he puts it together for you from the start. You don't want to be teaching your heart surgeon while you're going under the knife. So you want to make sure your advisor knows what they're doing. So go to newbankingsolution.com. Not only will you be able to access this, book, the Business Fortress, at cost, but you'll also be able to get access to 6 extra webinars that David and I have done on this topic where you can dive deeper and learn more. So that's newbankingsolution.com.
Perfect. All right. And then, Mark, this has been great. I've enjoyed discussing all this with you today. I do have 2 other questions I ask every guest. One would be just, any advice you might give somebody who's just starting out in their investment journey.
Yeah. The best thing I can say is don't be afraid to make that mistake. Go ahead and throw a little money into something small enough that it won't kill you, big enough that you'll be paying attention to it. And then just learn through practice. Spinning tires get you nowhere, but if you can spin that tire on some concrete, you get traction and move forward. But it takes a little heat sometimes to move that tire forward, right? So get your feet in the kitchen and do a little light investing first. That'd be my first thing to say to someone just starting out in their investment journey.
Perfect. And then how about a book recommendation? Obviously, we've got your book, of course, but any other book recommendation? Doesn't have to be investment, but just something that's been impactful to you.
One of my favorites is Keith Cunningham's book, The Road Less Stupid. Have you heard of this book?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Thinking Time. Again, going back to the very beginning of our episode, use that 4-pound knot of neurons in your head. It's an incredible miracle that it's up there in the first place. My wife says that all the time. She's like, is there anything up there? But you can totally learn some of the skills that Keith Cunningham has learned about how to think and how to push past the symptoms to get to the root cause of the problems that we all have in our lives. That's called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
Perfect. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being a guest on The Wealth Flow, and I think we'll call it a show. Thank you.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.